Ever wondered what it feels like to drive for hours without seeing another soul? Imagine standing in a landscape so vast and empty that your voice echoes back at you from distant mountains. America's emptiest states aren't just lacking in population, they're overflowing with untamed wilderness, quirky small towns, and opportunities for solitude that are increasingly rare in our hyper-connected world. While most Americans cluster in dense urban centers, these 10 states remain bastions of open space, where nature dominates and humans are mere visitors. From the frigid tundra of Alaska to the rolling mountains of Vermont, we're counting down the states where empty roads stretch to the horizon and personal space is measured in square miles, not square feet. Ready to discover America's last great empty places? Let's dive in. Number 10. Maine. Maine stands as the northeastern frontier of American emptiness. With roughly 1.4 million residents scattered across its rugged landscape, Maine manages to feel remote despite being a stone's throw from some of the country's most densely populated regions. The state's 43 people per square mile might sound reasonably populated until you realize most residents cluster along the coast, leaving vast interior forests virtually untouched. Drive the logging roads of northern Maine, and you'll encounter more moose than humans, and those moose don't stop for small talk. Maine's appeal lies precisely in what it lacks: traffic jams, noise pollution, and urban sprawl. Instead, you get 3,478 miles of jagged coastline, punctuated by lighthouses and lobster shacks. The economy here revolves around what the land and sea provide: timber, blueberries, and seafood industries that preserve rather than diminish the state's emptiness. Tourists flock to Acadia National Park and coastal villages in summer, creating seasonal population surges that vanish like morning fog when autumn arrives. The rest of the year, Mainers embrace their isolation with a stoic independence that borders on cliché. Think Maine feels empty? Just wait until you see what New Hampshire offers despite its much smaller footprint, where civilization thins out even as the mountains rise up. Number 9. New Hampshire. New Hampshire packs 1.41 million people into a relatively compact frame. But don't let that fool you. Despite ranking 9th on our list with about 147 people per square mile, the Granite State feels far emptier than numbers suggest. This is a place where development huddles in the southern third, while the northern reaches remain dominated by the White Mountains, a wilderness playground where cell service disappears faster than your breath on a January morning. The state's live free or die motto isn't just political philosophy. It's a literal description of the independence required to occupy its remoter corners. Tourism drives much of New Hampshire's economy, with visitors seeking the emptiness residents take for granted. Ski resorts to the mountains, yet drive 5 minutes off the main access roads, and you're alone in pristine forest. Small manufacturing concerns and tech companies cluster near the Massachusetts border, but they barely dent the state's rural character. What's fascinating about New Hampshire is how it maintains this emptiness despite experiencing modest population growth of 4.66% in recent years. People move here precisely because it's not crowded, creating a paradoxical pressure on the very emptiness they seek. You might think New Hampshire represents the limit of eastern emptiness, but West Virginia proves that Appalachia knows a thing or two about isolation and what happens when the people start leaving. Number 8. West Virginia. Welcome to the only state on our list that's actually getting emptier. West Virginia's population has shrunk by 3.2% in recent years, leaving roughly 1.77 million people spread across its mountainous terrain at a density of 77 people per square mile. This is Appalachia at its most authentic and challenging. The decline of coal mining has hollowed out once thriving communities, leaving behind ghost towns where nature reclaims abandoned company stores and railroad depots. Driving through the southern counties reveals a haunting beauty towns built for thousands, now home to hundreds, with empty storefronts like missing teeth in an aging smile. Yet West Virginia's emptiness has preserved something increasingly rare: an unbroken connection to Appalachian culture. Bluegrass music, distinctive dialects, and traditional crafts thrive in these hollows precisely because isolation has kept them safe from homogenization. the state's natural beauty remains its most underrated asset. The New River Gorge National Park, America's newest, showcases dramatic landscapes that rival anything out west, minus the Instagram crowds. Hikers on the Appalachian Trail find stretches of sublime solitude as they traverse the state's eastern edge. While West Virginia's emptiness stems partly from economic hardship, it creates opportunities for those seeking affordable land and authentic community if you can handle the remoteness. But if you think the Appalachian wilderness feels spacious, wait until we cross the Mississippi and enter Idaho, where emptiness takes on an entirely different scale. Number 7. Idaho. Idaho is having a moment. Despite ranking 7th on our emptiness list with approximately 2 million residents and just 22 people per square mile, it's experiencing a population boom, growing a whopping 17% in recent years as Americans flee denser states for its wide open spaces. This growth creates a fascinating contradiction. Idaho remains overwhelmingly empty, yet feels like it's filling up to longtime residents. The reality? Most newcomers cluster around Boise and Coeur d'Alene, leaving vast swaths of the state as untouched as they were when Lewis and Clark passed through. Idaho's emptiness takes many forms. The haunting lava fields of craters of the Moon National Monument stretch like an alien landscape. The Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness, the largest contiguous wilderness in the lower 48, encompasses 2.3 million acres, where roads simply don't exist. Even popular destinations like Sun Valley feel uncrowded compared to similar mountain resorts in Colorado. The state's agricultural heartland, yes, those famous potatoes, creates a different kind of emptiness. The hypnotic pattern of fields stretching to the horizon, punctuated only by the occasional farmhouse or grain silo. For those seeking isolation with decent internet, Idaho offers an increasingly popular compromise. Remote work possibilities have transformed formerly dying towns into budding refuges for digital nomads seeking affordability and elbow room. Think Idaho feels empty? Montana takes things to another level entirely, where the big sky seems bigger precisely because there's no one else around to share it. Number 6. Montana. Montana earns its nickname Big Sky Country not just because of endless blue heavens, but because there's almost no one to obscure your view. With 1.14 million people spread across more than 147,000 square miles, the state maintains an average of just 7.5 humans per square mile. This is America's emptiness perfected. Entire mountain ranges exist without a single permanent resident. Counties the size of Connecticut contain populations smaller than a suburban high school. Ranches measure acreage not in tens or hundreds, but in the thousands. Despite 9.58% population growth in recent years, Montana remains fundamentally untamed. Glacier National Park showcases this wilderness at its most spectacular, but the truly empty Montana exists in places tourists rarely venture: the Missouri Breaks, the Pryor Mountains, the vast grasslands of the Eastern Plains. The state's economy reflects this emptiness. Cattle ranching requires enormous space and few people. Tourism thrives precisely because visitors can experience unspoiled nature. Even the extractive industries operate largely out of sight. Montana's emptiness comes with trade-offs. Winter isolates communities for months. Medical care often requires hours of driving. Cultural amenities common in urban areas are rare luxuries. Yet residents will tell you often at length, if you make the mistake of asking, that these inconveniences pale compared to the privilege of waking up to mountains out your window and not seeing another house in any direction. But Montana is practically urban compared to our next state, South Dakota, where emptiness takes on historical and cultural dimensions that make it uniquely American. Number 5. South Dakota. South Dakota represents American emptiness with a monumental twist. Despite being home to perhaps the country's most recognizable stone faces at Mount Rushmore, the state counts barely 930,000 residents spread across its plains at just 11.7 people per square mile. This emptiness has shaped both the landscape and culture. Vast prairie stretches across the eastern half of the state, while the western portion rises into the Black Hills and Badlands landscapes, so distinctive they seem imported from another planet. Between these features lie countless miles of not much at all. The state's emptiness takes on poignant dimensions when you consider its history. Ghost towns to the map, remnants of the frontier boom and bust. Native American reservations encompass significant territory, including Pine Ridge, one of America's poorest communities, despite occupying land rich in cultural significance. South Dakota's economy leans heavily on agriculture, with massive farms requiring more tractors than farmers. Tourism creates seasonal population surges around Rushmore, Deadwood, and Sturgis during its famous motorcycle rally. But these brief influxes only emphasize the year-round emptiness. The state offers unique opportunities for those who embrace isolation. Housing costs remain among the nation's lowest. Outdoor recreation, from hunting to hiking, exists without the crowds found elsewhere. The night sky's unspoiled by light pollution display stars by the millions. But South Dakota isn't even the emptiest Dakota. Cross an invisible border to the north, and you'll find an even more sparsely populated landscape where oil wealth meets agricultural tradition. Number 4. North Dakota. North Dakota presents a fascinating paradox. It's simultaneously empty and booming. With approximately 789,000 residents and just 11.3 people per square mile, it ranks as America's 4th emptiest state despite experiencing periodic population surges tied to oil production in the Bakken Formation. This is emptiness with occasional boomtown energy. Drive through the western counties, and you'll encounter newly built hotels and restaurants serving workers from across American islands of activity in an otherwise vacant landscape. Travel just a few miles away, and you're back to horizon-spanning wheat fields interrupted only by grain elevators and the occasional farmhouse. The state's emptiness feels different from more mountainous regions. Here, you can literally see for miles in every direction, creating a psychological space that either liberates or intimidates visitors. The famous North Dakota wind sweeps across this landscape unimpeded, a constant presence that shapes both the environment and those who live within it. History has reinforced North Dakota's isolation. Harsh winters discouraged all but the hardiest settlers. The decline of family farming pushed younger generations toward distant cities. Even today, with modern amenities available in larger towns like Fargo and Bismarck, the state struggles to retain its youth. Yet North Dakota's emptiness offers a clarity rare in modern America. The night sky blazes with stars. Traffic jams simply don't exist outside the few urban centers. Neighbors may live miles apart, but form communities of surprising strength and resilience. Think North Dakota feels isolated? Our next state takes emptiness to an entirely different dimension where the wilderness isn't just vast, but often impassable. Number 3. Alaska. Alaska doesn't just embrace emptiness, it defines it. America's largest state by far holds just 733,000 residents, creating a population density of 1.3 people per square mile that drops to near zero once you venture beyond its few cities. This isn't ordinary emptiness. Alaska's vacancy comes with extremes that make much of the state essentially uninhabitable. Mountain ranges with peaks over 20,000 feet, glaciers larger than some states, and winters where temperatures can plunge below -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Many communities remain unreachable by road, accessible only by plane, boat, or dog sled. Alaska's emptiness has preserved indigenous cultures with deep connections to the land. Native Alaskans comprise about 15% of the population and maintain traditions centuries old. Their villages represent some of the most remote permanent settlements in America, places where subsistence, hunting, and fishing remain necessities rather than hobbies. The state's economy reflects both the challenges and opportunities of isolation. Tourism exploits the very emptiness that makes living difficult. Oil extraction creates wealth without significantly altering the empty character of the landscape. Commercial fishing thrives in coastal waters, teeming with life, yet devoid of human presence. For visitors, Alaska's emptiness can be disorienting. Denali National Park alone covers 6 million acres larger than New Hampshire. Roadside signs warn of the next gas station being 200 plus miles ahead. Even populated areas feel tenuous, as if human presence is merely temporary against the overwhelming force of nature. But Alaska's remoteness is matched by its southern opposite, a tiny New England state where emptiness takes a more intimate, pastoral form. Number 2. Vermont. Vermont offers emptiness on a human scale. With just 648,000 residents and a population density of 67.9 people per square mile, it ranks as our second least populated state despite being physically tiny compared to western behemoths. This is quintessential rural New England. Rolling green mountains, farmhouses dating to the Revolutionary War, and small towns built around white steepled churches and village greens. Vermont's emptiness feels cultivated rather than wild-day landscape shaped by centuries of light human touch rather than geological forces alone. What makes Vermont unique is how deliberately it maintains its emptiness. The state famously banned billboards in 1968. Development regulations preserve the rural character that draws tourists and second homeowners. Even the absence of tall buildings nothing exceeds 124 feet creates a distinctive skyline where church steeples, rather than skyscrapers, punctuate the horizon. The economy here balances tradition and innovation. Dairy farms struggle but persist as cultural anchors. Tourism thrives precisely because the state feels like a time capsule. Remote workers increasingly choose Vermont precisely because it offers connectivity without crowds. Vermont's emptiness comes with surprising cultural richness. The state boasts more artists and writers per capita than most urban areas. Food culture emphasizes quality over quantity, from maple syrup to craft beer. Even politics reflects the state's character, combining Yankee conservatism with progressive environmental values. But Vermont's carefully curated rural charm can't compare to the raw, overwhelming emptiness of our final state, a place where humans are so scarce. They're practically a statistical error. Number 1. Wyoming. Wyoming claims the title of America's emptiest state with numbers that boggle the mind. Approximately 586,000 people fewer than live in many mid-sized cities spread across 97,914 square miles creates a population density of just 5.85 people per square mile. Remove the residents of Cheyenne and Casper, and that number drops even further. This is emptiness on an almost incomprehensible scale. Counties larger than Connecticut contain fewer than 5,000 residents. Public lands make up nearly half the state, millions of acres, where human presence remains temporary and conditional. Even the highway system feels tentative, with interstates that close entirely during winter storms. Wyoming's emptiness preserves natural wonders that would be overrun elsewhere. Yellowstone, the world's first national park, showcases geothermal features found nowhere else on Earth. Grand Teton National Park offers mountainscapes so dramatic they seem painted rather than real. Between these famous destinations lie countless unnamed canyons, forests, and prairies visited only by wildlife and occasional adventurers. The state's economy reflects both the benefits and challenges of isolation. Tourism thrives in the northwestern corner, but barely touches other regions. Mineral extraction creates wealth without significantly increasing population. Ranching, the iconic Wyoming industry, requires vast acreage and minimal human presence. For residents, Wyoming's emptiness demands self-reliance bordering on rugged individualism. Medical facilities may be hours away. Supply chains become tenuous during harsh winters. Community takes on heightened importance when neighbors, though distant, represent the only immediate help available. Yet those who choose Wyoming rarely complain about what it lacks. Instead, they celebrate the luxury of unobstructed horizons, the absence of traffic lights, and the profound silence found only in truly empty places. America's vast empty spaces offer more than just breathing room. They preserve ecosystems, cultures, and ways of life increasingly rare in our urbanized world. From Maine's rugged coastline to Wyoming's endless plains, these states remind us that emptiness isn't absence, it's presence of a different kind. Which of these empty states calls to you? Perhaps it's time to experience America's open spaces yourself before they become just another crowded memory.